Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. Before we get started, I thought I'd let you guys know that I'm actually a guest on someone else's podcast. The podcast is called Christmas Past Podcast. It's a gentleman called Brian Earl who hosts it. He releases them around the Christmas time. Each episode is under 15 minutes long, so they're nice and short, quite easy to digest. And they're basically each about a different thing at Christmas. One was about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. One's about wrapping paper, which is actually my personal favourite one. I think it's a really interesting one, funnily enough. And the one that I'm actually featured on is Christmas advertising. I show up at the end for about 2 minutes, and I just talk about what I think Christmas is really about. So yeah, if you fancy checking that out, it's called Christmas Past Podcast. It's on all the podcast apps. He's got a Twitter, Instagram, that sort of thing. So go check that out. I'll include links in the descriptions of all the podcasts and YouTube. So go check it out and let me and Brian know what you think. This week's episode is with my friend Carla. We speak about a condition she has called Crohn's disease, as I frankly knew nothing about it. But we also talk about loads of other things, so we don't just speak about Crohn's for the entire time. We talk about homosexuality, sex in general, hemp and cannabis, and some of its medicinal uses, which include CBD oil. We speak about big pharma and a lot of the legal drugs you get from pharmacies and whatnot that doctors prescribe you, and some of the issues that come along with that, especially when people are on it long term. We speak about loads of other stuff as well. So, if you enjoy this chat, don't forget to subscribe to us on the usual podcast apps. And if anyone could leave a review on iTunes, that'd be super appreciated because it really helps out the show. And part 2 will be out next week, so I'll be back at the end.
Welcome to Genuine Chit Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And today's interesting person is Carla.
Hi.
And the audio may sound a little bit different because I'm actually doing it at Carla's house as opposed to my lounge. So if it sounds a bit echoey, then it's completely Carla's fault and you can blame her for it all. Right, so we get to it then. What should we talk about? I'd say, why don't we get to talk about the stuff that I know the least about? So women in general, no. We'll talk about, if you don't mind, talk about Crohn's.
Absolutely.
So I don't know anything about Crohn's except, well, actually I don't really know anything. I could just be talking about my arse if I said I did. So, like, have you had it your entire life? Is it hereditary? Do you get it? Can you catch it? All these sorts of questions.
Okay, so it's an autoimmune disease, so it's actually partly genetic and environment.
Okay.
So it is something where your immune system sees your digestive system as a foreign object, and to fix that, it will create tumours to get rid of it. And that actually happens on your digestive system.
Right.
It can cause other issues if you don't catch it. So malnutrition. Some people get blindness.
Is it one of those things that once you've got it, you can never not have it?
Yeah.
So is it kind of like, in a way, it sounds a bit like diabetes in a sense of like, it can be hereditary but also environmental. I know there's 2 types of diabetes, but like, once you've got it, you've kind of always got it and stuff.
Yeah, it's never really something that will go away. It's something that is managed more than anything. Yeah. I think with Crohn's, it's difficult to diagnose.
Yeah.
Because it can seem a lot like IBS, or it could be other things associated with your diet, or it can seem like it's a lot of different things. I went to my doctor 2 years before I was diagnosed to ask him if I had it, because my friend had been in hospital really quite unwell, and all of the symptoms he had, I had. But my doctor said, no, you don't have that, and didn't bother testing me.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got very unwell. But it's something...
How old were you at this point?
I was 20.
So you got diagnosed with Crohn's when you were 20, but how long were you sort of suffering from it?
From the age of 15.
Oh, that really sucks.
Yeah.
Obviously it would suck from any age to...
Exams are really hard when you constantly need a shit.
It doesn't sound like fun.
No.
No. I don't think anyone's really kind of thought about that and been like, yeah, what I'd love? Just to always really feel like I need a crap.
Yeah.
So, what did the doctors prescribe you and stuff? Like, what did you have to take and things to kind of try and curb it?
Was this before I was diagnosed or after?
Well, what kind of stuff did they give you before you were diagnosed? Like, what do they kind of think it was?
They thought it was IBS.
Yeah.
BS being quite funny in that sentence. They thought it was a range of different things. I'd lost a lot of weight very quickly, and they saw that as a very positive thing.
Okay.
But in fact, it was a very big sign that I wasn't well.
Yeah.
I'm living with it in those years, from being a teenager to being a young adult, at which point I'd had my daughter. That was really difficult because I'd get severe stomach cramps and I'd be trying to work and I'd have to go and hide so that no one saw. And I just got used to it.
Right.
It was normal. It would come and go, be okay for a while and not okay for a while.
Yeah.
But when my daughter was about 6 months old...
What did you say? How old were you when you gave birth to your daughter?
I was 20 and 10 days.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
May get onto that later. But, yeah, well, that's cool. I've met your daughter. She's lovely, so that's all good.
Is.
Yeah. Not one of the young people who doesn't absolutely hate me, which is quite rare. It's quite nice to have them not just hate me. Yeah, that is normally what they do. They just really don't like me a lot of the time. But, okay, so with the Crohn's and whatnot, so once they knew it was Crohn's, what did they prescribe you? Or was it like, did they prescribe you one thing and then they kept adding to it, or they prescribed just loads at once, or...
So it's a process with any medication that you're given. Started off at the bottom end of the scale, which is basically the least expensive drugs. It took me, goodness, it would be 7 years of going through probably about 10 different types of medication.
Yeah.
To get to where I'm at now, which is the most stable I've been in a very long time.
Yeah.
But that's not thanks to pharmaceuticals.
Well, not the conventional ones anyway.
No.
Because that's what we're going to get onto. So what was the most amount of pills from the doctor that you were taking at one point? Like in one day? Sort of thing?
So if we're talking how many pills rather than how many types of pills.
Yeah, for us, how many pills, and then also how many different types?
The most in a day would probably be about 45
in one
pills.
day.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you say for argument's sake, a human gets 8 hours sleep a day, okay, which is fucking rare for me, but so you say 16 hours of being conscious, and you say how many pills? Sorry.
Like 45 really
45.
would be maximum.
So it's like, 16 times 3 is 48. So you got to think, like, that's basically 3 pills an hour.
Yeah.
That's like, you can't even take things like painkillers more like that regularly. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite mad. Was it the kind of thing where they'd give you like, oh, these 3 pills curb Crohn's, but then these 2 pills curb the symptoms and side effects you get from taking these 3 pills, and then here's another pill to stop that, but then taking this 6 pills make you want to puke, so here's one to stop that, and then also make you constipated, so here's one, and it's just, each one's got like, it does like slightly more good than bad, so you have to have another one which curbs the bad it does. It's just kind of like an endless sort of...
Absolutely,
yeah.
That's exactly what it's like. And that's just the pills. There's other things, injections, the tests as well.
Yeah, because I can imagine they must be... Do they take blood tests, or do they like scrape samples of your stomach? Or I don't know anything about these sorts of things.
So...
You don't have to go if it's something personal,
no,
you don't have to go
I
into
will
any
talk
detail.
about it. I've had colonoscopies, endoscopies, then there's the MRIs, the CT scans.
Just for people who don't know, colonoscopy and the other oscopy, which I don't know. The
Endoscopy.
Endoscopy. It's like, it's a tube with a camera in it, isn't it? Getting into your body somehow.
Yeah, colonoscopy is the colon.
Yeah.
So through your bum.
Yeah.
And endoscopy is through the mouth.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Both very interesting, but horrific processes as well, because you have to flush out your system if it goes up your arse, and that if you have Crohn's, they give you something called clean prep, or Yeah, clean prep's the one you want to go for.
Right.
Because normally they give you Picolax, and it made me feel like my insides were on fire and burning, and that was not comfortable. So you have that the day before for a colonoscopy, and then it can affect you for a few days after as well, because they pump you full of air. So when you come out of the theatre, you have to fart.
Oh, wow. That is weird. It's weird to think about. So all those sorts of things that people have sort of like with the Crohn's. One of the things that you mentioned before we started recording was the infusion sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the way I describe it to people, I've seen pictures of people who've had that, and and it looks, just by looking at a picture, it looks like someone's going through chemo. So they're sat there on a chair with like an IV drip sort of thing. Is that more or less?
That's it. Yeah. So you're sat there with a drip of whatever medication it is you're on.
It's quite a few hours, isn't it? You have to sit there.
It depends on the drug and the infusion, and sometimes you have to stay for a bit afterwards to make sure that there's not any negative effects. They take your blood pressure, your temperature, and things like that before you get to go.
Yeah.
I have vedolizumab.
What?
Vedolizumab.
Vedolizumab. That
Yes.
sounds like some sort of hippie vegan treat.
Maybe you could start one.
Maybe. That sounds like cool. Sounds like cool. There we go. That's how good it is. I'm doing terribly. My vocabulary is dying. My brain is frazzled. But so I apologise to anyone listening to this and thinks I'm useless. I am. So what you that was at the most. So how many pills? It was like 45-ish a day. So how many pills are you taking? Pharmaceutical pills, just pharmaceuticals from the doctor. How many of them are you taking now?
Now. 6.
Okay.
Or no, 8.
You're taking 8. So obviously that's a huge reduction. From 45 down to 8. I mean that's like a fifth. That's like 20%-ish. So what's the reason like you now no longer have to take as many pills? I assume it's not the competence of the doctors.
No, I was very lucky to have a friend that looked up other options for me and studied on what other people had done.
Yeah.
And they got me a sample from a company called CBD Brothers of some of their oil, as Blue Edition, and I started using that on December 31st. And thanks.
Was that just gone, as in?
Yeah.
Because we're recording this now in September, so that was 9-ish months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gone from barely being able to walk for 2,000 steps a day without being exhausted.
Yeah.
Sleeping probably 16 to 18 hours a day. Barely eating, being depressed, upset.
Well, yeah, not only of the Crohn's and that, but also obviously all the horrendous side effects from all the medication you have to take.
Yeah, and I'd gotten to a point where I couldn't look after myself. It was in July 2015. I was in hospital with my Crohn's and I was really unwell, and it got to the point where I had to go back to my parents' house because I couldn't look after myself or my daughter. So it was obviously really bad time. So starting with the CBD, all of a sudden I was walking without being in pain. It was the first day I took it, I stopped taking one type of medication for anxiety.
Right.
And then next day I made the decision that I was going to come off of one of the more harmful antidepressants that I was on.
Yeah.
And I stepped off of that, and I was off of that within 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'd been on that particular drug for 3 years.
Yeah.
And long use of that drug can damage your body.
Yeah, a lot of the pharmaceuticals, especially for mental illnesses, can, like obviously a lot of people know this, but a lot of the symptoms of certain antidepressants when people take them and stuff, especially for long periods of time, is suicidal thoughts, which is that's the exact worst thing for someone with depression. But it's like all these big pharma companies release all these pills and stuff. A lot of people think it's some sort of conspiracy. Which
I do.
I don't think it's a conspiracy in the same way I think a lot of other people probably do. It's not. I don't think it's the big pharma companies trying to brainwash people and trying to kill people. I think it's just they know that with CBD oil, which we'll go into what that is specifically in a minute, but with things like CBD oil and some of these alternative medicines, they know that you can produce them much more cheaply and distribute, obviously, and they can be distributed cheaper. And like for CBD oil, that has such an over-encompassing thing, then you can have like, instead of having 100 different painkillers that they can sell to you for 10 quid a pack or 8 quid a pack of prescription or whatever, they would be able to just have like one thing that would cure all. But the thing is, obviously, they wouldn't make as much money that way. And they've already got their way in the system.
Yeah.
And like a lot of them generally lobby for the CBD oil. For those who don't know, it comes from cannabis, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
So it's cannabidiol.
Yeah, I didn't know that word. So
Yeah.
I think I know what cannabinoid is. I think is that a receptor?
Cannabidiol is a cannabinoid.
Right.
So you've got THCA,
Yeah.
which is THC before you dry it out and smoke it.
Yeah.
That's called decarboxylating.
Right. I don't know any clever big words when it comes to any of this stuff, except I know dimethyltryptamine, which is DMT,
Yes.
and psilocybin, which is in acid and shrooms. They're the,
Yes.
they're the only two big words I know to do with any chemicals of any kind.
Oh, I like long words.
So, yeah. Well, it's like the fear of, I need to look this up, but the fear of long words is like one of the longest words.
Hippopotomonstrosis scriptaliophobia.
There you go. Whoever came up with that, you're brilliant for knowing that and for saying so I don't have to look it up. But also the fact that is the phobia of long words, that's just like a dick move. I'll just call it like a 2-letter word or something.
I remembered it specifically because it is a dick move to make it that long, isn't it?
My favourite phobia is anatidiophobia, which is the fear that a duck is always watching you. That's a literal fear. People have that fear that a duck is always watching them, and I just think that's brilliant. But not for them. It probably sucks.
I'd like to meet those people.
I want to meet people who have the Messiah complex. That sounds like fun. Russell Brand's one of his recent stand-up things, he was talking about quite a lot. And he was saying like there's a house in America, I believe, where loads of people have got the Messiah complex, and he was saying how funny it is because they all think that they're Jesus. But I think
isn't that? Did he say it's in America?
I mean, he might have done. I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's a really. Yeah, it's going to be America if it's anywhere, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yes. It's not the healthiest thing for these people with this affliction. They need proper help rather than just putting them all in a room together and making. Yeah,
let's put them all in a church. That's a great idea.
Well, that's always the best thing to do. You know, we always know how well that goes when people have got severe illnesses, mental illnesses, when they're apparently conflicted with the homosexuality illness that's apparently a choice.
Oh yeah.
According to the fucking church. It's ironic, isn't it, that a lot of the people who are religious say that homosexuality is a choice. Which is funny because that basically means I want to clarify, anyone who says.
So what about all our priests?
Well, that's the thing is that they fuck little boys. It's like, well, the thing is, if anyone ever says to me, right, which fortunately no one I've met is this ignorant, but if anyone said homosexuality is a choice, you go okay. So if you're talking to a male, you go okay. So it's a choice. So you could choose right now to be fucked by 3 dudes at once and like it. You could choose to enjoy that. And if they say no, then it's not a choice. And if they say yes, you go, no, you're gay, mate. Do you know what I mean? No.
It's the repression of those feelings that creates those problems. I'm not saying that paedophilia is necessarily because they're repressing this, that they're gay.
Yeah.
That's an element of control as well.
Oh yeah, it's hundreds of different factors come into psychosexual strengths.
When it comes to, I just think repressing that kind of stuff is why people are messed up. You've got to accept.
Well, the thing with...
Just let people be happy, for Christ's sake.
Well, the thing is with people, we're getting closer to this slowly, but it's like people seem to be... it seems to be very difficult for people to just let other people be happy doing their own thing.
Yeah.
It's just like... So if it doesn't... Like, I don't care if you're vegan, vegetarian, gay, trans, anything. I don't give a fuck. As long as you don't hurt anyone, unless they specifically like being hurted, you know, maybe in the bedroom, that sort of thing. But as long as you're not hurting anyone who doesn't want to be hurt, and... you're not like, I don't know, spreading disease or doing anything like that, that's fine, I don't care. Do the fuck you want.
Yeah, as long as you're not purposefully trying to inflict pain or upset on anyone else, go for it.
Yeah, I don't care what people do.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. If someone wants to be vegan, go ahead. If you don't preach to me about it, I understand. I know the pros of veganism and vegetarianism and stuff, and maybe I'll talk about that in another episode at some point.
I love meat too much.
Calm down. Me getting flustered. When women talk about meat too much without me, I get a bit flustered.
Bit of sausage.
That was perfect timing. That was me dropping the coaster. That was like comedic perfect timing. It stuck to the bottom of my my glass. Yeah. So if we retract a bit, so
Yeah.
the CBD oil. So as we said, there comes some cannabis oil, and obviously, you know, maybe we'll go into it later, maybe not. I don't know. But with drugs in general, you know, I have an opinion which I believe that in general all drugs should be legal to a degree. I've figured out like a whole way it would work. We'll get into it this second, maybe later, or maybe another podcast. I don't know, but. People do drugs anyway. The very flat thing to say is people do drugs anyway. People are still doing drugs regardless. It's just, and the majority of people who die from overdoses and these sorts of things is because, you know, you get heroin from the dealer, it's 10% purity, you do that of 10 milligrams constantly, then he gets stuff that's 12% purity, you take the same amount you've been used to, and then you can OD.
And no one's died from weed. No one's died from weed.
Well, yeah, it's physically impossible. I think
exactly. You can't overdose because your body won't. Just won't take it in.
I think it's like I think I read somewhere where it's like you have to. I think it's smoke like more than your own body weight in cannabis to be able to die from it. But the thing is that you will puke and pass out before doing that, and also you will physically be unable to inhale with like a joint or whatever. You will physically be incapable of inhaling or ingesting any more of that when you're done. You know, so it's like in cannabis. Unfortunately, with it in you know, whether or not you smoke cannabis, like this is to an individual. So whether or not one would smoke cannabis, it shouldn't matter because
it doesn't matter because everyone smokes cannabis for the THC. That's the bit that gets you high.
Yeah.
And the tetrahydrocannabinol is the name.
There you go.
Hydrocannabinol, yeah.
Yeah, for all those people who are like, wait a minute, she said hydrocannabinol, what a failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it doesn't hurt.
It's important to note that THC is a completely different element to what's in the oil.
Yeah.
The content in the oil that I use is 0.02%.
Yeah.
And that is within legal standards.
Yeah. So obviously you taking the CBD oil, it's literally the oil extracted from cannabis, essentially. Just a really simple way of saying it. Just
it's mixed with hemp oil to dilute it as well, because otherwise it would be far too strong. So, yeah, it's...
Well, it's like in America and stuff, obviously, I think at the moment it's something like 20 something states, I think it's medicinal, and then like 10 or 15, I think you can work recreationally or something. And I know that obviously everyone knows that Amsterdam, you can go there and smoke weed legally and stuff. And I just want to say, anyone who goes to Amsterdam and smokes weed in Amsterdam and then says it shouldn't be legal is a fucking hypocrite. That's like...
Absolutely.
It's like, if you can go to another country and you do this thing, that means that you're willing to do it. Like, if I could go to Amsterdam and murder people, I wouldn't do it because I'm not a murderer. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not... If there's countries where murder's legal, that's ridiculous, that's stupid. It's just like, if you go to another country and you smoke cannabis and then you come back and say weed's bad, then you're a cunt. I just want
Absolutely.
to say
any type of hypocrite, mate. Any type.
It depends on what kind of hypocrisy, in the basis of, there's a lot of people, I think everyone's been guilty of this, giving a friend really good relationship advice, and then everyone has done fucking... Like, I don't think I know anyone who has been perfect with relationships all the time. It's part of making mistakes, but it's like, you tell your mate, look, don't do this with this person, you know, don't fuck this girl, or don't fuck your ex, because you know bad things will happen, you know it won't go anywhere. And they go, yeah, definitely won't. And then a week later, dude, I fucked my ex. It's like, okay, well, you learn from your mistakes, but then it's like, they keep doing it, and then they get into a situation, and then you're like, why do you do that? And then I do it, and then,
Yeah, but love is blind.
All the women who've loved me are clearly fucking blind, but it's with, the hypocrisy, I believe... The problem is there's like malicious hypocrisy and just misguided hypocrisy. You know, it's like if you tell your kid not to smoke, or that most parents tell their kids not to smoke, but a lot of parents do smoke. I personally do smoke. I would rather my kids never smoked because it's bad for them.
I don't want my smoking.
Yeah, but you do smoke.
Yeah.
So the thing is, that's being a hypocrite. But it's not. There's ideological hypocrisy, I think, is worse. If you tell someone you can't.
But it's for the benefit of her. So. Yeah. And it's at the detriment of me. Damn, I want to stop smoking now. What are you doing?
But she would. But if you do that, though, you could argue, yeah, but she will be. If you die, whether or not you believe in afterlife or anything like this. If we just said, for what we know as 100% fact, there's at least one life, and that's this one. There may be others, but what we know as pure fact at the moment is there's at least one life. Okay, and if you die, then the only people that affects, from what our 100% understanding of everything is at the moment, is the only people around you will suffer. So in theory, it would actually be better if Maya smoked instead of you, because if she died horrendous. Obviously, that would be fucking horrendous. Wouldn't wish that on any
I'm
parent or any
pouting
person.
quite severely right now.
Well, if she died from smoking, say tomorrow somehow,
I'll
then,
tell her you said that.
oh God, please don't. Then she won't like me anymore. And then you'd be the one who'd feel the pain for me. You'd be the one who's upset about it. You'd be the one who'd get the repercussions of that. So if you and you're about, as people may be able to hear, she's actually about to spark up. Now she rolled a cheeky cigarette.
It stressed me out, this conversation.
Talking about
so
smoking,
much.
so just have to roll a cheeky one. Yeah, well, it's like, and if you smoke and you die, then you're going to make her upset. So it's, do you know what I mean? You can look at it almost in perspective, but there's degrees of hypocrisy which makes sense because you want to protect people. You're like, I did this bad thing. I don't want you to do this bad thing. I'm not being a hypocrite. I've just learned from it. Whereas there's people who are like, anyone who uses any religious thing to tell someone they shouldn't do something, they're a hypocrite. Because every religious text is so full of ridiculousness.
It's bipolar. I was thinking about this earlier, how it's love thy neighbour or judge lest ye be judged, and then it's like people are just judging people. I'm like, are you just picking and choosing here?
Judge will be judged and love your neighbour unless they're gay, unless they're trans, unless they don't believe in God, unless they eat fish on a certain day.
I was raised Roman Catholic.
I went to Catholic school.
I was an altar server. I was really into the church when I was younger, and it's just you're right about hypocrisy. Show me how you treat other people.
Yeah.
It's not about the rules that they're living by, is it? It's
my example is for people. There's very few people I think anymore say this sort of thing. I know a few Christians who one of them I'm going to get on the podcast. His name's Dom, and I respect him a lot and his opinions and things. He believes in God. That's fine. A lot of people. Fine. I've got no problem with that. He's never. I don't think I can really think of a time where he's been a dick about it, so it's fine. If you're going to believe in a God, whatever. Dom's a solid dude. You'd never know he's religious without asking him specifically, because he doesn't act like an evangelical twat or anything. So that's fine. But it's like when people are. There's people who've used the arguments that atheists can't have morals because of the Bible and that sort of thing. And whenever people say that, I just say, okay, you're only doing good things for one of two reasons. Either you're being threatened or you're being rewarded, okay? If you do something nice and there's no prospect of reward, or you do something nice and you get rewarded, if you're doing something to get rewarded, which is the argument of all religious people, which is, well, you do good things, you make God happy, and more importantly, I go to heaven and don't suffer. It's like, if I hold a gun to your head and
tell that to Job. Do you know about how...
Oh, yeah, the story of Job, where he worshipped God and then the devil was like whispering in his ear saying...
Yeah, he's pretty much like, hey, God, hey, mate, why don't we fuck him up?
Yeah, why don't we kill his family?
Let's test him, see if he really loves you.
It was like plagues, kill his family, all this sorts of other stuff, and it was just like... Yeah, well, God's a cunt, so it's alright. I don't watch studies saying that
this is it. Like, I don't mind Christians who are kind and giving and everything I was taught that Jesus was.
Yeah.
And if you're not striving to be kind and giving like he was, I don't understand what they should be trying to do.
Yeah.
Any religion has been skewed from their original prophets, which it pretty much was just love each other.
Yeah, it's basically just don't be a dick. Because 2,000 years ago, obviously, that's not when the religion that of Christianity necessarily started. It's very obviously difficult to figure out when a religion properly started because of record keeping and stuff over 2,000 years.
Yeah, there's the bits that were cut out and then
translated 100 times,
translated,
backwards and forwards, and
chopped out.
There's the New Testament, the Old Testament, the sea scrolls, and all these sorts of things. But if we just look at the core thing of there was a lot of chaos, and the world wasn't the way it is at the moment, and a lot of people argue that religion is necessary for us to be where we are now.
No.
Well, I think the rules put in place however many thousand years ago were probably necessary at that time, because if you're saying to someone, look, just don't be a dick, and they go, why? And you go, because you get put in prison. They're like, I don't give a fuck about that. You go, okay, but then you're burning in hell forever. If that could just temporarily turn people just to be good for temporarily until everyone was kind of teaching their kids, don't be a dick, and then everyone was kind of like that, then you can take the God element of it away and everyone just kind of knows not to be a dick.
It could have initially been something like that.
So children, right? A lot of the time when you have young kids especially, you unfortunately have to do the whole punishment reward thing. You have to, up till they're about maybe 10. Obviously it can be older than that as well, but I'd say normally till at least 10-ish. It depends how.
No.
It depends on the kid, really. So it's like
Respect. That was
respect's a
something
big thing.
my parents drummed that into me quite hard.
Yeah.
They were quite hard on me. I respect that now.
Yeah.
And I get it now.
Yeah.
I think you do need that.
Well, yeah, it's all about balance, really. With everything in life, it's all about balance. But parenting is especially like that.
Oh, it's hard.
Also, when you have a little kid, they don't understand good when they're like really, really young. They don't understand necessarily good or bad at that time. Their brain's just not ready for it. So the only way you can really train them in a way, which may sound horrendous talking about children like that, but you have to do reward and punishment because they aren't intelligent enough at that age.
So
to be able to
basically,
figure out.
yeah, we do need to condition our children.
Exactly. And that's what we had to do with religion, I think. I think thousands of years ago, when everyone... if you do it the parallels of a child, there's a lot of intelligent children, okay? But pretty much every child who's 5 is less intelligent than anyone who's over 20. Do you know what I mean? Like, because your brain hasn't developed, so you're basically dumb. Children are small, stupid people. They're lovely, but that is a child. You go, especially the younger ones. When we were back 1,000 years ago, we were a lot less intelligent and wise to what we are now. So in both of those cases, you just have someone who doesn't know better, so the only way you can get them to do good or bad is to reward or punish.
And then,
And then when they grow
initially
old enough,
it could have been that.
Yeah, when they grow old enough
But
to
now
understand.
it's used as a control mechanism.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Even in sociology, it's termed as one of the structures in your social identity. It structures you.
Yeah, definitely. It's core values as well. A lot.
I still keep some of the core values.
Well, I wear. People can't see because I'm on a podcast. This is St. Christopher.
I thought it was.
Yeah.
Travellers.
Yeah, Travellers sort of good luck charmy thing. Well, it's like the story of that is basically I think I've been wearing it since I was like 10. I've only taken this off twice, and that's because it broke twice. And fortunately, when I was a young kid and people fighting me and trying to hurt me all the time, it got broken a couple of times. But fortunately, when that doesn't really happen anymore, I just never take it off. Like I've always worn this because my dad had one. For pretty much all my memory, my dad was always wearing one. And I remember, I don't believe in luck, but my dad wore one and for one holiday, he just didn't wear it. And our car broke down. We were in France and we were coming, I think it was France, and we were going over the border. I think, where the areas are with the docks where you get on, I think the Eurostar or the boat. I think it's the Eurostar. I think you have to go through like a border thing because obviously you get the Eurostar, you come out at England.
Yeah.
It's not like that. I can't remember that well because I was 10 or 12 or something. And that was the one holiday he didn't wear it. And our car broke down. Like, you could see the border and it was just like, he needed to run down the road and go there's a hire car place we were meant to drop the car off to, like, across. But it was just like, that was the one time he forgot. And that's the worst luck we've had with that sort of thing. So when I was younger, I might have been a bit younger than that actually, because I can't remember when I got my St. Christopher's. It might be when I was 10 or 12. But that was before I had one. And I remember saying to Dad how much I liked his, because whenever I saw him, he was always wearing it. And so I got one. He got me one, and I've worn it ever since. And then, Dad passed away 4 and a bit years ago, and I've got his one. Like, as I'm not wearing it, but I've got it in a little box. And then when I have a kid, I'm going to give it to them. And hopefully, if I can live long enough to see my grandkids, I'll buy them one. And then it'll just be the 3 St. Christophers always going through the Burton generation. That's what I really like.
It's funny you're saying that because my middle name is Therese, after Saint Therese, the patron saint of France. Huh. My mum's middle name is Therese, and so is Maya's. Huh. So we've got 3 generations with the same...
The patron saint.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice little connections there.
See?
That's what this podcast is all about, balance and connections. I've kind of lost the train of thought. We were talking about religion a lot. Oh, well, let's jump all the way back to... so with the CBD oil... obviously, so basically, it has a lot of controversy around it because some people are stupid and they don't understand things properly. They just go, weed's bad, drugs. They go, drugs bad, weed's bad, everything's bad, CBD oil's bad. It's like, no, let's actually look at it and think certain things can have more than one use. Even if you think that people, smoking a joint, eating 10 bags of Doritos and watching Peep Show on Netflix for 6 hours.
Drinking Coca-Cola.
Yeah, if you think someone doing that for 6 hours is dangerous to society, whereas, you get drunk and drunk drive and, I'm not saying people don't high drive and cause damage, but, you can't say that you're fine with alcohol, not with weed, because weed is not only in a fact, like, literally they've done studies on it. There was, I think his name was Doc Brown, and he was hired by, it was either the British government or the American government, to test every single drug and rate them on how addictive they are, damage they do to the psyche and damage they do physically, and what kind of damage you can do to others. And
Yeah.
he made this big graph about all the drugs. Obviously, he had all the pure drugs of heroin and that sort of thing. And
Nice.
he put them in an order, okay?
Yeah.
And the most dangerous one out of heroin, cocaine, all of them, is alcohol. It's worse for your body than anything else. It's worse for your mind than anything else. People don't realise this. Alcohol is so addictive. If you go cold turkey off heroin, you'll basically have the flu for a week. If you go cold turkey of alcohol, you'll die. Like it will, like if you're a really heavy drinker.
You are a really heavy drinker.
Yeah.
One of my close friends is getting better from being an alcoholic, and she's doing really well. There is support out there as well.
Yeah.
If you make the step to change it, it's not an easy one.
No, God no,
And
that's what caliber is.
having someone you love go through that, it's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
But you can get through it. And seeing her now, she looks so much better,
Yeah.
so much healthier. She's actually able to eat.
Excuse me, the hiccups. Do you think I'm making weird reaction noises to you talking about this story?
Yeah.
I'm just hiccuping.
Good moment to start, isn't it?
Yeah. I could have burped and farted at the same time, but I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, going back to the CBD oil, I've had such a good reaction to it that it finally, I was so stuck, because when your body doesn't work, it literally, walking down the road felt like I was wading through honey. It was weights on my legs, and it was hard. And I'd be sweating really hard just from walking down the road, because it was so painful. And after a couple of weeks of being on the oil, it's like that went away. And it turns out that was inflammation in my joints.
Right.
So as soon as that decreased, my walking was so much better, and I actually got to walk.
Yeah.
My energy levels increased dramatically. It didn't make me drowsy. In fact, it gave me a lot more clarity than I'd had in a long time.
Yeah.
I got my life back.
Yeah.
So I was able to work. I was able to look after my daughter. I was able to do housework. I was able to live and see people. And it's been amazing.
Yeah.
And it's been 9 months. So a lot of people think that there's the placebo effect, which after 6 months really would have gone away. But I did have a really full blood set done after a month and a half of being on it, and my kidney and liver function had improved dramatically.
Do the doctors know about you being on CBD oil?
Yeah, they know.
Okay.
My specialists know. They want the information from me, and they're interested because it has had results.
Yeah, especially with the NHS, obviously being cut so much, it's going to become, hopefully it will be, more people will see all the research is into it, and it's like, there's quite a few things that are going around that turned a lot of heads about a few years ago, of a lot of people who really didn't understand that all the things with cannabis is that, obviously, people getting high and stuff and having fun, that's cool, but that is nowhere near as important as the medicinal uses for it. That should be the number one priority of everything, is
absolutely
make sure that we can have medicinally, like I wouldn't care, like I said before, in an ideal world, I'd like all drugs to be legal, which I may get into, as I said, but there's loads of reasons behind that. But like, even if you're like a big stoner and you're like, I wish weed was legal so I could, smoke a joint, and it's like, that would be enjoyable, I suppose, but it's like, that is incomparable to the amount of lives it can help, I mean, it's like my dad, he died of esophageal cancer. So he was ill from being diagnosed, he died after 18 months. And he went through chemotherapy and radiotherapy and all these sorts of other things. And cannabis would be very unlikely to save him. It doesn't cure cancer full stop. It can help reduce the chances of it, or it can help remission a bit and that sort of thing. But the main thing that it can do for people, especially when they have stomach cancers and things like that, is not that, Christ, is it can make people very hungry, because obviously people know about the munchies and stuff. So when you get really, really ill, especially when you go for chemo or radiotherapy, you often lose your appetite, which means you don't eat as much, which just makes it worse, So it can help with that, and also it helps get rid of some of the pain, so you're a bit more active and that sort of thing. And so it's like, if it would have been nice that instead, like my dad, the last probably two months or so of his life, that's when he was getting to his worst. and he had to be on a lot more pain meds. But the last, maybe month, maybe it was 2 months, he just wasn't himself. He was kind of like me in a lot. Well, I was like him in a lot of ways. He's a very, very intelligent man, very charismatic, quite fast talking. And he'd always grip you with conversation. But the last couple of months, he just wasn't there because the painkillers would fuck him up so much. He'd just start a sentence and just forget what he was on about. He couldn't watch films the last few weeks or month or so. Like, he wasn't bedridden until the last week, I think, or maybe it was the last 2 weeks. But it was like he couldn't watch a movie because he couldn't remember it. He'd get like an hour through and he'd forget what happened. And it's like a lot of that is due to all the pain meds he was on, just like the side effects of them. And if he could, it would have meant that if he'd have been able to have CBD oil and this sort of thing, maybe he wouldn't have lived, but it would have been his last few weeks or months or whatever would have been so much more pleasant. Like, the quality of life would have increased.
I'm on a CBD Users UK page on Facebook, and on there are people who have used it alongside chemotherapy.
Yeah.
There are people that have gone into remission
Yeah.
whilst using the product. Again, it could be a combination of what they're going through as well as the oil.
It can help a lot. I'm just saying it can, but it's not. I don't want everyone thinking I'm saying take CBD oil and it'll cure cancer.
It doesn't just. It's more cancer. I don't think people really know, but some forms of cancer it's so painful.
Yeah.
Agony almost, and it can help with the pain.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Even just CBD oil can, as well as the weed smoking or vaping or whatever people do now. But there's so many other things on here as well. I've got a little list in front of me. There's appetite loss, neurological disorders like Parkinson's.
I've heard about Parkinson's. There's epilepsy as well, isn't there? That's like
Tourette's.
I was going to say about. I started the conversation about it a few minutes ago. I was just going to say briefly, but I'd like to hear the rest of these. About 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe it was more recent than that, it turned a lot of heads, especially with a lot of the older generation who just got the drug propaganda, drugs are bad, and go. And they saw this thing where there's this girl who's in the UK. I believe it was a girl, it might have been a little boy, because there's a little boy who's in America, I think, and there's also there's a little girl in England, and they had epileptic seizures. They're having like somewhere between like 8 and 20 a day or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
And no medication was working, and you'd see like the parents like crying and be like, I just want to have my child. They're in so much pain. Yeah. You give them like a drop or two or whatever of the CBD oil.
I've seen it nasal spray for epilepsy because of obviously what they're fitting, aren't they? So the nasal spray, particularly for epilepsy, can be helpful.
I think I saw a thing where a kid was having somewhere between 8 and 20 seizures a day, and it went down to like less than one a week. Just from literally
there's
the only thing.
some people that are at risk of brain damage from the amount of.
Your seizures can cause brain damage. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
And to just have a safety net of, that's not happening so often, so it's not as likely.
Yeah.
It's.
Well, it's like there's a drug documentary called. Oh no, I've completely forgotten what it is. It's got Joe Rogan in it as well, and I love Joe Rogan. I'm gonna have to look up. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on Netflix. It's a weed documentary. It's just about like the law on it, what it can do, all the benefits, all this sort of stuff. And I saw there was a guy on there who I think his kid either was just had epilepsy or Tourette's or something. He was having a lot of seizures, and he was like, there was footage of him and his kid before it happened, and he was obviously really upset and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
And then it showed him like a month after he'd been taking this,
and this kid looks alive again.
Well, the kid looks alive, and the dad was just crying with happiness. He was like, I finally have my son back. My son's like 7. I've had more conversation with him and more calm time in the last month than I have his entire life because of this thing.
I cried when I walked down the road and I wasn't in pain. I cried because I could think again.
Yeah.
I've got quite an interesting thought process.
Yeah.
And I find I've got more creativity again.
Yeah.
It's opened up at who I am.
Yeah.
Again, it felt like who I was suppressed by all these medications and even my illness, and the CBD has just resolved so many issues, because it's not just the Crohn's, it's anxiety, depression, joint pain. I've had bad lungs over the past few years, and that's resolved.
Yeah. I think also with the things that CBD and things like THC and that sort of stuff can help as well. Is, you know, if any people who are listening to this podcast have smoked weed before, they would know, or been to Amsterdam, just done over there, or whatever. It's like, you know, you smoke it, and a lot of the time make you really, really tired, or make you really, really hungry, and this sort of thing. So it's really good for people who are anorexic, and also people who have certain eating disorders, and people who have insomnia.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, so it cures. So this CBD oil that is obviously in England now, it's not readily available, really easy to get, but at least it's not fully legal, the stuff that you get.
You can get it quite easily.
Oh, has it become... I remember a few years ago it was more difficult. I'm not as well adversed to it.
Yeah, it's not an issue.
Oh, okay. It needs to become more mainstream of...
There's a
like,
few
prescribed.
different companies that do it.
Yeah.
I understand that, yeah, it should be prescribed. But in the meantime, I'm quite happy to pay for it.
Yeah.
It is being looked into in several areas.
So I just want to quickly say, the cannabis documentary I was speaking about, it's called The Culture High. And it was around the time where obviously weed started becoming legal in America. So talking about that, the repercussions of it in Colorado, how much money it made, all the medical benefits, blah, 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 and the drug war. It's got Joe Rogan in it. It's got like a few other celebrities and stuff in it from America. I'd highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. Sorry. I hate telling people about documentaries and stuff and then just not saying what it is because people are just like, what is it then? I'm not going to Google it. But it's like The Culture High. There you go. But I do apologise for interrupting.
That's okay. I've forgotten where we were at though.
What, on the list?
Well, no. Before
the list.
Well, we'll go back to the list.
I don't know. You're looking at your phone, that's why I'm saying the
Yeah,
list.
so it's got lots of different things on here, like pain and sleep apnea, phantom limb, fibromyalgia, which is something that I know a lot of people get. Any type of inflammation, I can agree to that. I've had no inflammation at all, and it's been wonderful. There's been no pain. There's nausea, Crohn's is on the list, anxiety, bipolar, OCD, PTSD.
I was going to say, I think PTSD gets helped by it.
Yeah, PTSD definitely gets helped by it. Also, did I say? Yeah, I did. MS, so multiple sclerosis, which is quite horrible. It's degenerative.
Muscle disorder, isn't it? Is it when your muscles basically just deteriorate into nothing?
Not quite. It basically causes a lot of necrosis, which is so organs, when they have necrosis, they're breaking down.
Oh, okay.
Degrading.
I see. So deteriorating.
Yeah.
So I had a vague idea.
Yeah. So that can be quite helpful if it slows that down, or at least provides some sort of relief. Because a lot of the things that are on this list, everything's painful.
Yeah.
And I think what's important to know is that we have the endocannabinoid system within us.
Yeah.
So you've got CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors.
Yeah, they're in your brain, aren't they? They're things that when people ingest or smoke or whatever, when you take weed or cannabis in any way and you get the high of it, then
it goes through those centres. Yeah. And if it's imbalanced, then it can cause all of these neurological issues, immuno issues. So Crohn's is what's the word?
Autoimmune.
Yeah, so it's an autoimmune disease. But there's so many different autoimmune diseases that are now really rife everywhere. And I just think that maybe it's that tip of the balance that's kind of going throughout the whole system, because it is a system.
Yeah.
So you get slightly out of balance in one place and it just everywhere else falls out.
Yes.
So if you balance it back,
everything else starts to sort itself out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you can even think of it, even if you look at it in, not even looking at it chemically or anything like that, if you just look at it baseline simple of just, if you're in less pain, you'll feel better. Mm-hmm. Just that baseline thing.
Oh, absolutely. And that's it. You're always, when you're in constant pain, because my sister has something called chronic regional pain syndrome.
Right.
It's where the nerves in her spine send the message to her brain saying that her legs are in agony.
Oh, okay.
And when you're in constant pain like that, as well as big pain I've experienced in the past, but it seems like I've moved forward so much that I don't really remember it. When you're on that level of pain constantly, the smallest thing will set you off because you're already all the way up there.
Yeah.
You're already trying to cope with your pain constantly, and you're wavering at the top end of the scale. So that little thing to everyone else seems tiny, but it just pushes you and you can't take it.
Well, people can think of it in a really, really simple way. Like, if you stack up, let's say 100 books, okay, you can then put something really light, like if it's kind of tilting a little bit, you can put a paperclip at the end of that, and then it will tilt the whole thing. And it's the same with human psyche, same with everything. It's just like, if there's one book on the floor, you put a paperclip on it, it's not going to do anything. But it's all about circumstance. That's what we keep going back to this, of what people not understanding, people not being empathetic enough. If people were more empathetic, then CBD oil not only would be mainstream, but it would be prescribed readily for everything on that list, and probably more because we've had more research into it and know more what it can do. Probably be able to refine hundreds of different types of it, which would be like, this one is exclusively for Crohn's. You take this, it helps Crohn's, and it literally has no side effects and does nothing else. And then this one does this, and you could have,
because there's different benefits within cannabis other than the cannabinoids. I think is it terpenoids or terpenes?
I'm not an expert on cannabis.
It's something you can get for the crystals that you would smoke.
Right.
I think you smoke them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it's like a wax. And that stuff, it has other stuff in it that's there to help you ingest it or take it in to add benefit to it.
Well, I know that with people like I've spoken about the Joe Rogan podcast a lot because I listen to it constantly. He's a massive weed advocate and he talks about weed and stuff all the time. And one of the things he said that I found quite intriguing was that if you eat it, but when you smoke it, it's a chemical reaction, whatever, you get high, blah, blah, blah. When you eat it, there's a different chemical that's released that's really similar to, I don't know, I'm not an expert on it, I don't know if you are.
I know.
Go on then.
So when you dry out the bud and the leaves, and then you smoke it, that is a process that's called decarboxylating. So that means that it changes the THCA into THC.
Okay.
If you eat it fresh, without it being dried, it stays as THCA,
right,
which is on the list I have as being something, it depends what you've got, but it can be something that could be an added benefit alongside CBD.
Fair enough. So you're looking at me and your face looked like you were about to say something else. So I was like, well,
no, I'm quite impressed with myself that I've managed to remember all of that.
Yeah, I've been terrible today. I can't even think of anything. I don't know. It's only, what is it? Is it Wednesday today?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. It's because I started work last week on like a Monday, so it's just like my brain still isn't used to having to get up at a reasonable time and use my brain throughout the day. I've been able to just chill out and do nothing.
Yeah, I do enjoy just sitting there and letting my brain melt some evenings.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sometimes that's what you need. You just need a day where you just don't think about anything important. You just
an evening.
Basically, a day is a bit optimistic. I don't have enough time to have a whole day off.
No.
Even when I was off, to be honest, I couldn't sit still. I learned to sew and start the podcast and made a music video and went camping and stuff like that. So it's just like, I say that I want to chill, but I'm like, I'm working, all I want to do is chill, and then as soon as I'm chill, all I want to do is work. It's just,
I want to chill by a fire. That's what I want.
That'd be nice, like a nice isolated cottage in like a forest, with a fire going, but still Wi-Fi. Because
and a hot tub and lots of booze. Yeah.
That's the thing. If I had loads of money, I'd get a hot tub. Just having a hot tub.
My parents had a hot tub. Well, they have one, but it needs work doing.
Well, that's the problem. You either need to get like an unbelievably swanky one and then have a proper cover for it and take a lot of good care of it, or you can have those inflatable ones, can't you? Which you can buy them at Range and Aldi and things like that.
No, I wouldn't have one of them.
Well, someone at my old work actually said he used one, and you can fit 2 people in there really easily. And he said, I think it called EasyJet, and he was like, I think it's like £50 compared to like a proper good hot tub.
EasyJet, isn't that a?
That's a flight, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'm thinking of.
Easy Spa.
That's it. See, I had half of it. It's because of EasyJet and the jets in jacuzzis and stuff. Do you know that a jacuzzi is actually a brand?
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually, they're all called hot tubs.
Yes.
It's like
My dad's a plumber, so I learnt that probably a long time ago.
Okay. Well, what was the other one? I think it's vacuum cleaner and Hoover.
Oh yeah,
Because
Hoover is the brand.
Yeah, and it's like obviously people say Google it. It's like that's obviously a brand. It's actually use a search engine, and there was like Ask Jeeves. God, no one of the generations before.
I'm worried about Google though.
Well, you think it's because you're quite into conspiracies and whatnot. You're quite like the.
Well, I think it's just. Well, no, I think it's just a bit. You can misinform people if you've read. I've not finished it, but 1984.
Oh, that's the George Orwell book, isn't it?
Yes.
See, I've got the film, or one of the films that was made from that, with John Hurt in it, and I think it was released in 1984 as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my dad recommended it to me, and I still haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it. I want to watch it.
Okay, well, what I'll have to do is we'll have to watch District 9 in 1984 at some point.
Cool.
Yeah. We'll get a hot tub, drink loads of booze, and do that. Oh, that'd be amazing.
I really want a hot tub now.
I've always wanted a hot tub. This conversation has not changed anything. I've always wanted a hot tub.
I've had fun in the hot tub.
I think I've only ever been in like one hot tub in my life. Like I've had a lack of hot tubs in my life. I do say it is a story which is horrendous and makes me hate people. I went on holiday last year in October. I went with my mum, her fiance, aunt's son Joe, who's a couple of years older than me, my granddad, and aunt's mum. So it was like 6 of us. And we went to Spain. It was lovely. Mum paid for it because she's a lovely person, and or paid for me. And on the roof of the hotel, it's quite a nice hotel, but on the roof there were 3 jacuzzis, the 3 hot tubby things. And I went in there, and it was lush. That was apart from that one. I think I've been in one jacuzzi in Britain or something, but I was in there, and it was amazing. And sat on the roof reading a book of some sort. I think I was reading Scroobius Pip's podcast book, which is quite funny. That's how long it's taken me to start a fucking podcast. And I was reading and playing, I think, Legend of Zelda on the DS and that sort of stuff. And I went downstairs or whatever. I think I went for a walk or something. And Aunt and Mum told me that there was these 2 couples who they're actually on the same flight with us on the way there and on the way back. And they, at about, I think it was like 2 p.m, so 2 in the afternoon, they were fucking in the hot tub, right, in one of them, on the roof with people around. Like, 2 couples doing it. And they were telling me that it was just like, obviously there's children stuff around, which is horrendous, and that's disgusting and so unhygienic and awful. And one of the women was saying, like, I think the dudes at some point high-fived each other, which is some level of bro that I don't want to get to. Yeah. And then one woman was saying, I think one was saying something like, I don't give a fuck who's watching, or something like that, while it was happening. And it's just like, people have, like, things sexually very different to what I like, obviously. And I'm not
I don't know. I don't mind public places. I've had a few.
Oh, I'm so not a voyeur. I'm just. The thing is, I'm so.
It
awful.
was when I was younger. I don't think it's happened in a while.
It's to what degree? I don't mind people. I'm not a huge fan of public displays of affection where people are like eating each other's faces off. But I've been drunk and met a woman in town and made out with them a lot when I'm out. And when you're out drinking and stuff, it's not too bad. It's more so when it's like in the middle of town at like 1 and you're sat on a bench outside like Primark, full on like making out, touching behind each other's head and that sort of thing. It's just like
that's a bit
don't
much,
need to see that. It's like if people want to have public sex and not be disgusting about it, make things unhygienic, like ejaculate on a park bench or something, or leave condoms around.
Oh no, that's great.
As long as you're not gonna, no one really has to see or hear it, and especially not children. Well,
oh yeah,
if you want to fuck outside, do what you want. I'm not a fan of that because. Well, I get hay fever, so...
The idea is that no one finds you. It is meant to be secluded.
It's the thrill, isn't it?
Like, yeah, it's not meant to be people finding you doing it. But it's like... everyone's done it. Stealth wank. When you're like worried someone's going to hear you and you have to finish quickly.
Yeah,
it's
a
thrill, isn't it?
Sex. I haven't. Then you said stealth wank. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh no, not in public. Not in public.
Stealth. Yeah, I've done a couple. I don't think. I'm trying to think if I've ever done. No, I've never had a wank while someone else has been in the same room, unless.
Not in the same room.
No, but I've done it when my parents have been downstairs, and I've had it before where this was when I was younger, obviously, and they've been downstairs or whatever, and I've been like going at it, and then they come upstairs. It's like, oh god, what do I do? And it's like not late enough, and my light's on. It's like fuck. Fortunately, I haven't been caught or anything. There was one time that Dad once pulled me aside and said, I was on the computer and. RedTube, the world's biggest porn site, and I just was like, I couldn't think of anything to say. This is when I was 17, I want to say. I think I was in college.
Okay.
And it might have been before I had sex. 17? I think I had sex pretty much almost dead on my 17th birthday sort of time. No, it was about a month before, so 16. Whatever. It was around that sort of time, and he said something like, I've deleted it off the history and stuff, and I don't really care that much, but if your mother saw that, how upset she'd be. So if I find anything like that again, I'm going to have to put parental controls
Yeah, but it's
on.
expected of boys, isn't it? It would be really different if my parents found my porn.
I do want to say, though, that...
My dad would never... Oh, my daddy. No.
Oh, don't say that. Oh.
Women
over the age of, 13 or 14 say daddy, it cringes me out.
I call my mum mama.
That's not too bad. Mama's fine. I've got my my nieces. They call their grandma mama, because one of them, when I think the eldest one, when she was instead of being able to say grandma, she couldn't say it. She said mama, and she just always said it. That's cute.
My dad gets called Boppy because he was originally meant to be called Grumpy by the first grandchild, but she couldn't say it, and she called him Boppy. So now that's what they call him.
I was called Mole for a while because Michael Mole kind of thing. They can't pronounce the k, so it's Mo. So it was Mole for a while.
I dead on told my mum when I was about 4 that my name was not Carla anymore. It was Twinkle, that was it.
That was it. What's it going to be called now on this podcast? It's going to be episode whatever with Carla Twinkle. That's going to be that's suited, nice and suitable. But those people in the hot tub, that was gross. And my dad finding the red tube thing was quite funny, but it was also so goddamn embarrassing. And the thing is, what probably made it worse was that it wasn't my laptop. I want to clarify. It wasn't a laptop. It was a desktop computer in a room, and all the family used me, my mum, my dad all used that computer. Me for certain different reasons, which is gross and awful. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't watch porn. It was normally just things like, I don't know, TV shows with sexy bits.
I remember my first ever... No one wants to hear this, but I'm going to tell them anyway. My first ever erection, I remember. And it was... I was at my childminder, so I was about 9, I think. It was when I was in primary.
Did it freak you out?
Not really. Well, basically, it was the first boner... I'll explain, right? Before that point, I had had boners, but when you're a little boy and you need a wee somewhere, you hold your willy, yeah? And that's... Yeah. I only say willy instead of penis, because when you talk about little boys, it's got to be willy, and it's funny. Or winkle. That's it cracks me up. But, they're holding it and stuff. And when you get to... Depending on when you start to develop, I don't know the age that boys start getting erections. I don't really want to know that specific bit of information. But I think it's around, maybe 7, 8, 9-ish sort of age it starts to become more regular thing. And as men and a lot of women will also know, if you play with male genitalia, you get an erection. When you're a little boy, you're holding it, and you're normally moving around, you're pacing, because you really need a wee and you're holding it, and then you get one. So for a while, before I learned, because I went to a Catholic primary school as well, so the sex education was 2 videos and never to speak about it ever again. And do you have any questions? It's like, well, fucking everything, but, I once actually didn't know what a wet dream was, and I wrote on a bit of paper, because you can ask enormous questions, and then she read it out, and the entire class laughed. And
you would, though.
They all, we were 9. Well, we weren't 16, we were 9, and they all just, or maybe we were 10, just all completely cracked up. And then the teacher just answered the question.
Did you pretend to laugh? Did you laugh?
I didn't. I was very unpopular. Everyone thought I was autistic when I was in primary school. I'll tell you what, when I was in primary school, I was so unpopular, okay? 3 guys who I was allegedly friends with told me they were going to the secondary school I went to, Chamberlain Park School, and they went to a different one. So that's how unpopular I was. My so-called friends told me they were going to a certain secondary school and went to a different one so that I would go to that one and they'd go to another one.
That's really sad.
It's very sad. My life is. But it's not that bad. It's fine. But it's... I was very unpopular at that time, so I don't know. But then someone found out it was me. I can't even understand how. I didn't tell anyone. But then they started mocking me when I was 9 or 10 for not knowing what a wet dream was while in Catholic school. So that was fun.
Oh.
Yeah. But when you're that age, especially me, I didn't know anything about sex for a very long time. My parents never spoke about it really until it was too late. I remember I was making my sandwiches once when I was 18 or something. I was making my sandwiches and Mum walked in. This is when I was in a fairly serious relationship, so I must have been 17. And she was like, do you use condoms? I was like, Mum, right, please don't talk to me about this sort of thing. I don't want to talk to you about sex. I'm making my sandwiches and I can't escape. And also, Mum, you do realise that I've been in a sexual relationship now for quite a few months. You're a bit late. You should have been having this talk with me 5 years ago, not now. And she wouldn't stop, and I was making my sandwiches. And for lunch next day, I just couldn't leave. I was like, please stop. She was telling me other stuff. I was like, no, please.
I had older sisters, so I knew these kinds of things.
I had older brothers, but they didn't
and
tell me
I watched TV shows. Eurotrash taught me a lot.
Eurotrash.
And then there was like loads of other TV shows that I'd watch.
Yeah.
I know a fair bit about that.
I know now, unfortunately. I like to think I know now, you know. But it's like when when I was younger, and you know, held your willy, you need a wee, and you'd get an erection. And for a while, I just thought, oh, sometimes when you really need a wee, it goes hard. And I just didn't, because I didn't know any better. So that's just what I thought. Okay. And this is embarrassing as well. I'm going to tell you and everyone who's listening. When I was before I knew what. When I got taught in school, Catholic school especially, you know, about sex education, it was a man's willy gets hard and then it sprays out white stuff in a woman. And I couldn't understand that because I didn't understand that I just saw penis and the only stuff that comes out of it is urine. So I thought, do you pee inside a woman? I was really confused. I'm glad.
Yeah, I thought that for a bit as a kid,
I'm glad I never
though.
did
That's
that,
not.
I thought you learned the right way. Unfortunately, I started masturbating before having sex with a woman, before that awkward thing would come about.
Yeah.
But that was quite funny and embarrassing. But my first erection I remember being of sexual nature was I watched Jessica Simpson, These Boots Are Made for Walking, you know, and it's the Dukes of Hazzard video.
Yeah,
and
in the shorts, with the hat.
Well, it wasn't the shorts and the hat. It was, and she's towards the end of the video. She's in a bright pink bikini, scrubbing the car with soap and rubbing herself with soap and pouring it over herself. And I was watching it going,
poor boy.
I was watching it going, this is amazing, but I don't know why. And I remember my childminder had magazines around. This story's going to sound like it's going to be horrendous. It's not. Don't worry. It's had his magazines around, and that was when I think Jordan was really popular. And obviously Jordan Katie Price has huge boobs, and I see her on the cover of these Heat magazine or Cosmo, whatever the hell it was. And I just remember staring and being like, just staring at these huge boobs and being like, I don't know why, but I really like looking at them. And then it took a while for me to realise what any of it sort of meant, because obviously repression and that sort of stuff in Catholic school. So it was just like I didn't connect the dots. I just didn't know for a very long time, for a while. And then I remember when I started wanking when I was in year 8 or 9 or something. But I didn't watch videos to begin with. I just looked at pictures online. I remember Googling things like certain words with just boobs after it. I remember doing that. That was like the first few times.
Dinosaur boobs.
Certainly not those. That would be freaky. I don't want to think about that.
Cupcake boobs.
I don't know. That could be alright. I remember seeing in a Bazaar magazine once, there was a photo shoot of a woman who was covering herself in baked beans. And it was like, so I like baked beans, but I don't like cold baked beans. And I certainly don't want baked beans on a woman.
Have you heard of sploshing?
So they put it inside themselves.
It's just using food.
No.
In many ways.
I know of the variety of ways you can use food. I think I've only used food a little bit.
Yeah, but like lots of food. Like you have to cover the room in plastic sheeting.
Oh, that sounds quite fun, actually.
Like pies and everything.
That sounds like
all the food everywhere, getting really like slippery.
It's weird actually, because I've thought about this for a while. Where one of my, this is going to be too much information for a lot of people. One of my weird. Maybe it's a fantasy, I guess. I don't know. For the last few years, I've had this weird thing where I just really want to have sex with a woman and put just like a chocolate cake between us. And just, I don't know, just fuck, and this chocolate cake just goes everywhere. And it's probably one of those weird things because I'm quite a clean individual and probably fairly repressed as well.
Yeah, but getting messy's fun.
Well, that's the thing, and I love oil, but the problem is, goddamn, you if anyone's used oil in the bedroom, Jesus Christ, you lube in the bedroom is bad enough. It stains the sheets.
Use coconut oil.
We can obviously I haven't been so adverse to those sort of things. I normally don't think ahead enough of these sort of things.
I've just got coconut oil everywhere.
Just every woman in the
I
house.
use it. I actually
really
probably do.
It's good for the skin.
It's good for your skin. It's really nice to make food with sometimes.
I've heard it's a good sort of substitute for
yeah.
It's got healthy fats in it and stuff.
I made these little banana bread cupcakes and substituted the batter with coconut oil.
Yeah.
And that was lovely.
Oh, awesome.
So,
yeah.
And it's good for you.
Yeah, I've heard it's
a good fat.
It's one of the new things is like that, avocados, and a few other things, all that sort of the healthier fats that are coming about because everyone's now kind of realising that, back to conspiracies, with the whole sugar thing, like it's literally like the companies paid scientists to lie about tobacco being good or bad for you, about climate change, and about sugar.
Yeah.
And saturated fats.
And marijuana.
Oh yeah, and
the smear campaign. It was never marijuana before that point.
It's the Mexican.
They changed it to marijuana, so it sounded like a Mexican thing, so they could blame it on them.
Yeah, because there was a guy, wasn't there? I have to Google what his name was, but there was a guy who he had a lot of stock in the paper industry, and he ran a few newspapers and stuff. And when he found out that with hemp, if people don't know this, cannabis is hemp, but it's kind of not. I'm not going to go into details, mainly because I don't know as much, but with hemp, you can make paper out of it, things like
clothing, houses.
You can make shitloads out of it, and the wood, I think, you can make from it, or some sort of similar.
Oh, you can make like biodegradable items. You can make all sorts.
Well, you can make this kind of wood sort of thing, which is like so strong. It's like almost as strong as certain metals. Yeah, obviously it's biodegradable.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's one type of it that Joe was talking about. I'm butchering this, something terrible, but it's meant to be like fantastic. I'll have to Google it and look it up or something. But with hemp as well is that you can grow more hemp quicker in a smaller area than standard paper.
And it's got a much higher yield as well. It grows quicker.
Yeah.
You can grow more of it in a smaller space. It's a much higher turnover.
Yeah.
It's much better than killing our trees that give us oxygen. Especially with pollution at the moment.
Yeah.
Especially, do you know Southampton's really bad for pollution?
Yeah, I know, because Southampton's got I think it's the most traffic lights per square mile than like any other city, which means in the UK, which means obviously the most standstill traffic. You know,
yeah.
We're also really densely populated. Like Southampton and Plymouth, I think the only two cities in the UK that don't have cathedrals.
And we're a port.
Yeah, we're a port.
And that has its own emissions.
Well, you see, also we've got Fawley only across the river, which is the Fawley Power Station. Yeah. We've got all the boats and stuff that let out so much pollution. We've got all the cars. You know, we're quite an industrial city. You know, we've always been quite an industrial city. You know, there's 228,000 people living in Southampton. You know,
I didn't know that.
So it's like that's really densely populated compared to I think a place like Portsmouth is a lot less than that. But yeah, I'm just trying to look up. Oh, here we go. William Randolph Hearst. When I was talking to someone else about it, or maybe I was talking to you about it the other day, I think I said Hirsch, but it's not Hirsch. It's William Randolph Hearst and the DuPont Company. Yeah, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. If anyone's interested, just Google it. But it's like he basically, as you said, he marijuana is the name of a Mexican tobacco, and they completely stole the name and said Mexicans are smoking this drug and coming over and raping women and stealing things and being violent, and then they did all the propaganda about marijuana. 2 birds, 1 stone, wasn't it? Yeah, so he could do that. You know, he ran a lot of the newspapers and stuff, so he did all the propaganda, and then everyone got in their minds that cannabis was bad, or marijuana, if American. It was all bad, and then obviously the propaganda came in when the war on drugs came in, and reefer madness, just say no, and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah.
There's a picture I saw online which cracked me up, and it's like in response to the just say no thing. And it's like, I always say no to drugs, and it's got a picture of a guy passing a joint to him, and he picks up the joint and goes no, and he takes a toke out and passes it to someone else. I thought that was fantastic. So just say no to them. We can say no to them, they're not talk back. You can still, yeah, it's like a line of coke. You just look at the coke and go no. It's like fucking just say no to drugs. Fucking was it Nancy Reagan? Well,
they can open up your mind a bit more. Throughout history, different religions even, they've used different things to reach a heightened sense of being.
Well, everyone has seen at least a movie where someone takes, drinks ayahuasca, which is a certain type of compound that also has DMT in it, which we spoke about briefly earlier, and peyote, I think, as well. And, everyone's seen a film where there's a shamanic ritual or something, or someone goes in the wilderness, eats something random.
It's in The Simpsons.
I was going to say in The Simpsons,
crying out loud.
He eats that ridiculously hot pepper, and that's meant to be parallel to peyote. You take it, you go on this big spiritual journey. He saw the wolf or the fox, whatever it was, where you often see spirit animals, things like that. Yeah. It's like, you do really strong hallucinogens, and people often, have trips, that's kind of the point. And, you go throughout history, and I think it was the Mayans or the Aztecs or something, they took shrooms and this sort of thing, and it's like, all throughout history, people have used it. It's like, I think I spoke to you about it when I was over here before, and it was, that we were talking about the pineal gland.
Pineal, there
you go. Yeah. I always say pineal because it looks like a pine cone.
And that's where it comes from, because that's, in history, that's its shape.
Yeah, and if you go to the Vatican, one of the most
There's a really
holy
big
places.
one, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a giant pine cone essentially, and it's to do with the pineal gland. And a lot of people, I think Terence McKenna or someone like that said that the pineal gland is like the third eye. You know, it's kind of like your eye to spirituality, or like some people believe when you do certain hallucinogens, it opens up like almost like a portal or something, or some sort of connection to alternate universes, or not alternate universe necessarily, but other planes of reality that we can't
necessarily see with the eyes that we've got.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to go, "Oh, fucking hippie bullshit."
Well, no, it's not hippie bullshit, because we don't see things the same as other creatures.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
For instance, bumblebees or bees, they see mainly in grey and red, and the red is mainly the flowers with pollen.
Yeah.
So they're not able to see in many frames, and then you've got cats that can see in way more than we can.
Yeah.
And then
the mantis shrimp
we
can
don't
see way more colours than we can. They can
our
see
eyes
colours
aren't all constructed the same way.
No.
They may work similarly, but they're not constructed to see the same spectrum of light.
Yeah, well, exactly. You get loads of creatures to see completely different. They see different colours. They see, it's like even men and women in general. It's I think I mentioned this to you before as well. It was women in general can see more colours than men. But it's not like a woman can see a colour that a man can't, like a whole new colour. It's a man can see, say, 100 shades of green rather, and a woman can see, say, 120. It's that kind of thing.
But it's also, there's several types of colour blindness.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And some men might not realise they have it, but colour blindness, it's carried on the X chromosome.
Oh, is it?
So if men have it, they've got it, whereas women can be carriers.
I see.
So they're more likely to be colourblind than women.
I see. Well, that's really interesting. It's like, it was even something as simple as that. And for people, when I said, I want to be devil's advocate for a second and say, people think this is just hippie bullshit, saying about this. But it's just like, with it, with all that sort of, that jazz about it, I've lost my train of thought because you interrupted me with
Sorry.
hand gestures.
Sorry.
I'll just say there's one final point, then we'll take a quick break because I really need a wee as well. But it was going to be... I'm butchering this so bad. Oh yeah, the hippie bullshit thing. People think, this hippie bullshit, you just take a drug and it's a chemical and it makes you see shit that's not there. And it's like, I don't know for a fact whether it does or does any of these things, I haven't done loads of hallucinogens, I don't know. So I'm not an expert in any of these things. But it's like, if you blow a dog whistle, humans can't hear it, right? So therefore, you're smiling because I said blow, didn't you? Was that what you were giggling? Yeah, okay. When you use a dog whistle, it does a frequency of sound humans can't hear. Okay, everyone knows also there are spectrums of light we can't see. Infrared being one of them. We have to develop special machinery to be able to see radiation and stuff in space and all these sorts of other things. And it's like, they're the ones we know of. How do we know there isn't some sort of light that we just don't understand yet, or some? Obviously, humans don't just have 5 senses either. There's the 5 basic ones I could talk about, but we have a sense that you can feel the difference in temperature change. That's a completely different thing, and there's loads of different senses and stuff. So it's like, well, how do we? I was going to say someone described it as, I think, was it one of my friends described it as this? Maybe it was some famous person, they were quoting them, and it was like, if you can't tell a sense or something, like you can't, to describe it as like, you can't see out of your hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't. It's impossible. So that's one sense. If you didn't have eyes, you can't see out your hands. Your hands can only feel, really. So it's like, what other senses are there that the human body just doesn't have?
Sense of space.
Sense of space.
Yeah.
Or is that?
Sense of where you are in terms of other things.
I see.
It might not be photographic memory. It might just be awareness of where you are in that room.
Yeah, it's all these sorts of other things, and it's just like, there could be senses that we just don't have as humans, and that could
or some of us have, and others don't believe they have.
Yeah, there's a guy called Brian Froud who he did all the costume stuff and all the concept art for Dark Crystal and Labyrinth.
Okay.
And that sort of style of things, and he believes, and he's written a book. And it comes with oracle cards as well, which are similar to tarot cards. And I've actually got some, and I've been reading the book of it. And it's like, his belief is that there are fairies, and they are. It sounds, you say it to people, and they just go, "What?" And I'm not saying I believe this. I don't really know what I believe necessarily, but it's like he believes that there's an alternate plane of reality that these beings existed, and they can communicate with us like very briefly in little tiny ways, and like, you know, you're looking at something and you think you see something move in your peripherals, and you look and there's nothing there, and it's, you know, it's all this stuff where it's just like something hasn't been explained and people like to fill in the blanks with their own thing, and it's like, I'm not saying that fairies exist in other dimensions or anything, but I'm also not saying they don't, because we don't know. And that's one of the issues that I found, especially when I was a young atheist, was I was always like, there's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no God, there's no nothing. I know because there's no fact. It's like, no.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't believe there is a heaven or hell because there's no evidence for it. However, I don't...
If you look for more evidence, you can gain a bigger picture of what's going on. So you can see that there's correlations between the different religions, like the number 3. Like so many different things, like Jesus.
Especially Abrahamic. What is it, Abrahamic? I'm butchering this. Where it's like, you know, you've got Islam, Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism.
Yeah.
They're the
and
some of the things.
Yeah, you've got what was it? Jesus is the evil magician.
Right.
In Jewish religion, he's not seen as a very good person.
Yeah.
So you've got same characters, and even with Mayans, who I think were a power of their own.
Yeah. Well, they could figure out. I think it was the Mayans where I saw a thing of, they managed to carve in clay or something like that. They made an accurate scale of the solar system. It was in the background of a picture. There were like 2 people, and in the background they just had these this alignment of the planets, and it was they had like the orbits right, they had the size, like proportional sizes correctly, and it wasn't even the main part of the picture, it was just a little thing in the corner, and it was like, how could you even know that? Like, we've, you know, it's just like there's other ways of maybe figuring things out. Well, that's my alarm going off. That happened in another podcast, I think it was with Bradley. How about that? Man, I'm a terrible host. Well, on that note of the alarm, we'll pause it here. And we'll probably come back to it, I imagine, if Carla isn't sick of me. We'll come back to it in a minute, and yeah. And that's the end of part 1. Thanks for tuning in, guys, as always. Part 2 will be up next week, where me and Carla talk about childhood, being a victim and accepting help for certain issues, the difference in generations, you know, like our parents and how they were raised by our grandparents and how our grandparents are raised and all that sort of thing. And at the end we talk about what we would do if we had like millions of pounds, you know, how we would try and use it to potentially create a company or benefit the community in some way. It's a really interesting chat. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and if you feel like it deserves it, you can review us on iTunes, and that's always super appreciated. I appreciate all you guys listening, and I'll be back next week.